I think he wants us to pick up where he left off. You know, saving people, hunting things. The family business.
The first episode of Supernatural hit the road on September 13th, 2005, and with the 20-year anniversary creeping up, I figured now's a good time to rank some of my personal favorites and some absolute dumpster fires of this show's epic 327 episode run. All 327 are fair game, so consider this your one and only spoiler warning for a show that's literally older than some of you watching. I'm Colton from Nostalgia Mode, and these are my picks for the 10 best and 5 worst episodes of Supernatural. At number 10, we've got The End, which kicks off with Sam and Dean still on rocky terms after, accidentally letting Satan out of his cage and starting the apocalypse. Dean's had enough and takes off on his own, but then Zachariah, played by the always enjoyable Kurt Fuller, teleports Dean to an apocalyptic future to show him just how ugly things are gonna get if he doesn't become the Sword of Michael. And man, the future sucks! But the production design does not. Creating an apocalypse that doesn't feel cheesy on a TV schedule and budget is no small task, but production designer Jerry Wanick and team absolutely nailed it. This whole episode feels completely different from the usual locations, and it's no doubt one of the best looking episodes of the series. Our Dean quickly finds out that future Dean has gone full Rick Grimes, and this is where the episode really shines. Dean versus Dean. Watching present-day Dean clash with a battle-scarred, heartless version of himself makes for some amazing back and forth, and Jensen Ackles absolutely nails it, playing both versions subtly different without ever slipping into parody. And while the overall vibe is bleak, the episode sneaks in just the right amount of comedy. Chuck hoarding toilet paper, Cass as a powerless Zohan-style cult leader, and Dean's secret underwear confession, just really great stuff. But my favorite part is how the whole setup backfires on Zachariah. The plan was to scare Dean into saying yes to Michael, but instead it pushes him towards what actually matters, reconnecting with Sam. Resentment will literally destroy the world, and forgiveness is the only way forward. So why number 10? Well, honestly, Sam as Lucifer just doesn't fully land for me. Jared Padalecki is great, but compared to Mark Pellegrino's take on Lucifer, this white suit version here just doesn't really hit the same level of menace. The Dean versus Lucifer showdown should have been scarier, but instead it kind of falls a little bit flat for me. That said, Sam snapping future Dean's neck and then rack focusing to our Dean watching horrified, yeah, that rules. At number 9, we've got Scooby Natural, and I'll be honest, I almost took this episode off the list when I rewatched it for this video. The first few minutes are filled with that cheesy TV-14 fluff from the later seasons that I usually cannot stand. The lighting, costuming, shot composition, and color grade all contribute to making the live action sections of this episode feel incredibly goofy.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
But then the boys get sucked into a TV and dropped straight into a Scooby-Doo cartoon, and suddenly I'm grinning like a kid all over again. First off, Jared and Jensen are shockingly good voice actors. They fit right in with the Scooby Gang, and the animation itself is actually really solid. It's way better than I expected. This episode scratches a very specific and very nostalgic itch for me. What makes it even better is how violent it is. The over-the-top cartoon gore is hilarious because it completely subverts the Scooby-Doo formula while also calling back to the darker, more mature edge of early Supernatural. The jokes mostly land too, with a ton of deep cuts and references that display a real appreciation for both shows. My favorite joke being the Scooby Gang having a full-blown existential crisis when they find out about the supernatural and how real everything is, which is genuinely one of the funniest moments in the whole series.
We've been stopping real estate developers when we could have been hunting Dracula? Are you kidding me? My life is meaningless!
If there are ghosts, that means there's an afterlife. Heaven, hell. Am I going to hell?
Not everything works here. Dean's endless thirsting after Daphne gets old fast, but the overall whimsy of the episode still really works for me, especially the ending, where they solve the mystery and unmask a shady real estate developer. Mwah, chef's kiss. Overall, even as someone who usually hates the later season's cheese factor, this one-off warmed my cold, dead heart. I remember watching this live back in the day and feeling how refreshing it was to see a top 10 caliber episode this late in the show's run. At number 8, we've got Night Shifter from season 2. The episode opens with Sam and Dean rolling into Milwaukee, 414 for life, baby, to investigate a string of robberies. It doesn't take long before they cross paths with Ronald Resnick, a security guard who swears the culprit is a mandroid, half man, half robot, complete with glowing laser eyes. And while Sam and Dean know it's actually a shapeshifter, what makes this fun is that Ron has basically done all the detective work for them. He's just one step off the truth. From there, the case spirals fast. Sam and Dean infiltrate the bank to catch the shifter, only for Ron to storm in with an assault rifle and turn it into a full-on hostage situation, even though he very clearly says,
"This is not a robbery!"
The tension never lets up. The police are outside, the FBI are moving in, and the shapeshifter is still hiding inside. It's pressure from every angle, and the episode just flies by. The atmosphere here is so fucking good. Season 1 and 2 look incredible and still hold up 20 years later. The desaturated colors, the constant rain, heavy contrast, it feels tailor-made for a crisp fall night or a Halloween watch. The bank setting is fantastic too. Claustrophobic and gritty. And while the action choreography isn't anything special, it's one of the overall weak points of the show as a whole, the pacing and tone more than make up for it. But what really elevates this episode is Ronald himself. He's such a fun, endearing character, and his banter with Dean shows off that soft spot Dean has for oddballs and underdogs, which makes his death hit way harder than most Case of the Week victims we meet, especially in the early seasons where they were great at pulling that emotional rug. There are other little things I love here too. Sam's hair is up there with the best it's ever looked in my opinion, and the gore really goes for it. The arm degloving is gnarly, and surprisingly it made it on cable TV. Also, Henriksen's introduction as the no-nonsense FBI antagonist is very exciting. Henriksen feels legitimately intimidating, and his ability to get under Dean's skin puns, and make him start acting like a childish little boy really helps establish his menace. Now, it's not perfect. Dean's womanizing gag is very of its time and still never works for me, and Sam being so weirdly cold to Ron is off-putting, considering empathy becomes his whole personality later on. And yeah, the way they escape at the end by just strolling out in SWAT uniforms is pretty dumb, but then that Styx Renegade needle drop hits, and honestly, all is forgiven. That is one of the coolest music moments in the entire show, no debate. Now, some of you are about to get really upset about this one, but at number 7, we've got In My Time of Dying, the season 2 opener. Right off the bat, it sets itself apart from how most shows handle addressing season finale cliffhangers. Instead of dragging things out or doing some sort of time skip, we jump immediately into the aftermath of the car crash. Dean's on death's door, Sam and John are trying to keep the whole thing together, and the story hits the ground running. It's super rewarding, especially knowing how later seasons would love to make us wait. The vibes here are immaculate. That haunting piano section from Americana by Jay Gruska threads through the whole episode and becomes one of the emotional staples of the series. The aesthetic overall just feels so cozy, even though it's an episode about death and trauma. Desaturated hallways, slow pacing, long silences, it's pure early supernatural mood. The big hook here is Dean as a spirit, watching his body fade away while he wanders the hospital looking for answers. I just love how mysterious and vague the afterlife is at this point in the series. There's no giant lore dump, there's no conversing with long dead family members, just this hazy, dreamlike space that's up for interpretation. The show makes a point of showing how easily Dean could have become one of the very ghosts he hunts, which reframes the whole salt and burn, black and white morality of his character. That moral complexity sneaking through is peak early Supernatural. Performance-wise, everyone's firing. Jensen Ackles is excellent as usual, snarky one moment, deeply sad the next. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is fantastic in what ends up being one of his last big turns as John Winchester. Side note, skipping ahead here, did he have to kiss Azazel to finalize that deal? That probably sucked. And I've gotta shout out Lindsay McKeon as Tessa the Reaper. Her calm, empathetic presence is such a cool contrast to Dean's stubbornness. She almost acts like a therapist, gently walking him down the road to acceptance, and we don't actually know for sure what choice Dean was about to make, which is really, really cool. And Lindsay McKeon ends up having one of the series' most quietly memorable guest performances. Speaking of guest performers, Frederick Lane crushes it here in his introduction as Azazel. He's not only one of the best villains the show ever had, but he's the playbook. His menace is what basically every villain for the rest of the run tried and failed to replicate, and it started here. Azazel's only really matched by Mark Pellegrino's early run as Lucifer, so really that shows how fucking cool this guy is as a villain. Now, I get why some people find this one slow. Coming off the insane season 1 finale momentum, this one hits the brakes, and it's a slow, contemplative, existential episode. It's about fate, letting go, and mortality, with basically zero action. For me, that's exactly why it works, but I see why it's a letdown for people who wanted to see these three guys team up and fight monsters. As much as I love it, I do have a couple nitpicks though. Sam's hair here is rough, and Dean waking up with zero memory of the whole episode seems like a missed opportunity in my opinion for some long-term character growth. And I'm really getting tired of this show giving Sam and Dean horrific facial trauma that magically leaves no scars. And yes, obviously saying goodbye to Jeffrey Dean Morgan here stings after how much the last few episodes have been showing him. But overall, this is one of my personal favorite flavors of Supernatural. Deep themes about death and acceptance explored in a fun genre series on basic cable. And while I think this might be one of the picks on the list that makes people really upset, I have to be true to myself here. I love this episode, and it's one I think I've rewatched the most over the years. It's not the flashiest episode, but it's one of the richest, and that's why it sits comfortably at number 7. Season 3 had every excuse to be a mess thanks to the writer's strike happening at the time, but somehow it still gave us some of the tightest, most memorable episodes in the entire series, capped off with my number 6 pick, this absolute gut punch of a finale. From the jump, the stakes feel impossibly high. That Hellhound illustration in the opener sets the tone. Dean's deal is coming due and time is running out. Performance-wise, both leads crush it. Jensen Ackles brings out this perfect mix of bravado with genuine terror, letting the cracks in Dean's tough guy persona show through, while Jared Padalecki matches him beat for beat. Sam's desperation here is raw, messy, and incredibly believable. Even Bobby gets some really good moments, reminding us why he's one of the best supporting characters the show ever had. And then there's Lilith, holding Dean's soul while possessing a little girl and torturing a suburban family. It's one of the darkest, most disturbing villain beats in the show's history. Supernatural demons are usually smug quit machines, but Lilith's cruelty here pushes way past TV-14 into genuinely unsettling territory. So huge shout out to the child actor Sierra McCormick for selling it so well. But less credit to Ruby's actress Katie Cassidy, whose constant Marvel-style snark just doesn't land for me the same way other Demons' Menace has in the past. This episode also nails the balance of horror and heart. Dean's kittens and long walks on the beach line makes me laugh every time, and the Bon Jovi car sing-along is one of those rare tender moments that manages to be fun, funny, and thematically spot on all at once. On the production side, I've also got to shout out the demon knife. It looks and feels like a legit weapon, unlike some of the other dollar store props the show leans on later on. And the sound design here is disgustingly good. There's one shot where Sam's yanking the serrated demon blade out of a chest and it clicks against every bone. I love it. Not everything lands though. The holy water sprinkler system around the house is pretty dumb if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, and I'll never stop complaining about how often the boys just straight up stab innocent possessed people instead of even trying an exorcism. The moral complexity of that is addressed throughout the show, but not nearly enough for me personally. Feels like one of those tropes you just have to accept and get over with, but with an episode count this outrageous, it's not like they didn't have the time. But honestly, all of that fades into the background because of the last 5 minutes. Dean's death by hellhounds is one of the scariest, most violent, and genuinely heartbreaking moments in the whole series. Invisible monsters are notoriously hard to sell, but the camera work here is great. The gore effects are probably the most brutal the show ever displayed, and Sam's reaction is devastating. And then comes the kicker. We finally get to see hell, and not just some red light fog machine B-movie set. This hell is industrial, clearly inspired by the Hellraiser series, and serves as a very shocking reminder that the early seasons of the show weren't afraid to go there. Dean strung up in an endless void screaming for Sam is hands down one of the best depictions of hell the show ever pulled off. Later seasons revisit it again and again, but nothing ever touches this. It's just that good. The first 90% of this episode is solid supernatural fare, but those final few minutes, that's what earns it a place in the top 10. Dean dies, Sam breaks, and hell has never and will never look this good again. Next up, we have Changing Channels, what some consider to be the peak of the mountaintop when it comes to meta episodes. The setup here is that Sam and Dean get pulled into a bizarre case where the monster of the week turns out to be television itself. Suddenly, they're trapped inside a string of TV parodies, bouncing from medical dramas to sitcoms to game shows, with the trickster pulling the strings and making them, quote, play their roles, as you'll hear at the beginning of every recap going forward. It's easily the funniest premise Supernatural ever ran with, and the execution is razor sharp. Now yes, Dean's womanizing gag in the opener hasn't aged very gracefully, but given the era when How I Met Your Mother and The Big Bang Theory were doing that same brand of joke unironically, it kind of fits now as this time capsule moment. And that's what this whole episode is really about. It's a snapshot of TV in 2009. Every parody hits, from Grey's Anatomy riffs to fake CSI, even down to the hysterical fake Herpexia ad. The writing shows such a clear understanding of how these shows worked that it's not just comedy, it's critique.
I've got genital herpes.
I've got genital herpes.
Seriously?
Performance-wise, once again, Jensen Ackles absolutely destroys here. His comedic timing is insane, and watching him get starstruck by Dr. Sexy MD is both hilarious and so deeply in character it hurts. Jared does fine too, but Jesus fucking Christ, those sideburns, who thought that was okay? It's one of those things I just cannot unsee every time he's in a scene. The production itself deserves some love too. By season 5, the look of Supernatural had shifted. Brighter, more polished, but still gritty enough to make it feel like the same show. This episode especially has a really fantastic color grade depending on the genre of show on display, but the core timeline always has that classic desaturated palette that I love oh so much. And then there's Richard Speight Jr. as the trickster. He's always fun, even if sometimes it looks like he forgot to put his dentures in, but this is the episode where the comedy suddenly twists into something bigger. His monologue at the end gives way to a genuinely smart mythology retcon. Sam is Lucifer, Dean is Michael, which refrains everything we've seen up to this point and deepens the story instead of breaking it. Now, not everything's perfect. Obviously, the Japanese game show parody is really funny, but it kinda toes the line into 2009 humor, so I don't know, I guess that's up to you. And the CSI segment is probably the weakest of the bunch. Along with at the end, Sam's grumpy, sneezy, or douchey line is incredibly cringy. Like, I can't even look at the screen when he says it. Changing Channels manages to be the funniest episode of the show, a razor-sharp TV satire, and a key piece of the Apocalypse myth arc all at once. Even with the angel drama bogging it down at the edges, it's endlessly rewatchable, which is why it holds steady for me at number 5. This is a big one. At number 4, we have Abandon All Hope, where the Winchesters, Bobby, Ellen, Joe, and Cass all team up for what could be their last stand against Lucifer himself, and it feels like it. The scale here is massive, the production looks cinematic, and the writing gives everybody a great moment to shine. First off, hello Crowley. Mark Sheppard walks on screen fully formed, sharp, snarky, scheming. He's so good here. It almost makes me mad knowing how the show slowly sands off those edges later on. But here, he's electric. Also, side note, because I don't know where else I could organically fit this in, that crash zoom on Castiel when he says "got him" while watching Crowley kiss another man is so weird and out of place, and it's absolutely hysterical. Like, what the fuck was that? It makes me laugh every single time. But what makes this episode really special is how well it balances the giant stakes with these little character beats. Cass getting dragged into a drinking game with Ellen is really fun. Joe shutting down Dean is also really fun, and as the resident Dean womanizing hater, I love it. But once the hunt for Lucifer begins, the whole tone doubles in scale. The invisible hellhounds are still a tricky thing to pull off, but the show makes them feel menacing. And Castiel even gets to be cool again with some of the most inventive shots before the show turns him into the butt of every joke. From there, the scope explodes. The hunt for Lucifer feels big, like cinematic big, you know, the sets, the tone, the atmosphere. This is Supernatural looking and feeling its best. And speaking of best, let's talk about Mark Pellegrino as Lucifer. Mark Pellegrino is phenomenal in this role. I honestly think his season 5 performance makes him the best villain the show ever had by far, and he deserves way more recognition for just how entertaining and intimidating he is. The calm menace, the constant air of judgment and disgust, and the uncomfortable truth that he's also really funny all comes together to create an incredible antagonist. One of my favorite little touches is the eerie foreshadowing where he predicts Sam saying yes in Detroit. It's chilling. There's literally no explanation for how he knows that, and the fact that it's left hanging only adds to this sense of inevitable doom that hangs over the whole season. Pellegrino's performance grounds all of that and makes the apocalypse storyline hit as hard as it does.
This right here is my favorite thing ever in the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
Of course, the real gut punch comes with Ellen and Joe. The episode gives them some of the best material anyone's ever had on the show, and both actresses absolutely deliver. Their sacrifice is heartbreaking, beautifully shot, and they both honestly outshine Jensen and Jared throughout the whole episode. Joe's death is brutal, Ellen's goodbye is devastating, and that little touch of the hellhound breathing in Ellen's face before the explosion, exceptional filmmaking. It's raw, sad, and earns every second. Is the plot a little convenient? Sure. Hiding out in the one random hardware store that just so happens to have everything they need to make so many bombs is a stretch. Dean yelling "suck it" before shooting Lucifer is more cheesy than badass, but honestly, none of that matters because the aesthetics here are peak Supernatural. The dark, desaturated early season grit is mixed with season 5's higher budget spectacle. This is what the show looks like at its best. It's not just the big set pieces or the deaths that make this one rank so high. It's the total package, the aesthetic, the performances, the balance of scale and intimacy. All of it adds up to one of the most complete, devastating, and iconic hours the show ever put out. And at number 3, we have The French Mistake. And if you weren't already aware, here's the setup. Balthazar, played by Sebastian Roche, who is just so fucking cool and criminally underused, decides to hide Sam and Dean from Archangel Raphael by tossing them into an alternate universe. But not just any universe, the set of Supernatural the TV show. Suddenly, Sam and Dean are Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, and everything immediately spirals into hilarious chaos. This episode works because it's swinging for the fences. Most shows wouldn't even try something this meta, and if they did, it'd collapse under its own cleverness, but Supernatural somehow makes it hysterical, quotable, and weirdly heartfelt all at once. The comedy here just does not stop. There are like 50 insanely quotable lines from this episode. There's Jensen's soap opera past coming back to haunt him.
Oh, says you were on a soap opera. What?
Well, if I didn't have cancer, and I wasn't married, and I had plenty of money, would you want to run away with me?
Money? Do you think I really care about money, Nicole? I care that you're healthy.
I'm no quitter, Eric.
Jared's real-life wife, Genevieve, showing up in a wonderfully awkward way, and Dean being unnecessarily upset that their show is actually Canadian. The more you know about the TV industry and Supernatural itself, the funnier it all lands, and I would highly recommend listening to the podcast Supernatural Then and Now, and specifically this episode, because the whole thing really adds to the much-needed context you need for the inside jokes about this production and this show and this crew. Misha Collins absolutely kills it here as this goofy, overly vain version of himself, and his death scene is genuinely disturbing. He really sells the terror of a regular guy realizing he's about to die. And since there's no heaven in this reality, that's just it for him. No afterlife, gone. Supernatural slipping some existential dread into the middle of its goofiest comedy hour is a really strong reminder of why I love this show so much. Tiny little critique from me, once Sam and Dean make it back to their own universe, the episode just kind of fizzles out. The Angel War plot resumes, Raphael gives some exposition, Castiel flexes, and all it accomplishes is reminding me that the overarching plot of season 6 is a bit of a dud. On rewatch number 15, I usually just tap out right when the boys cross over. Luckily, it's mercifully short, so it doesn't really tank the episode. And that's The French Mistake, an episode so unique, so gloriously meta, and so relentlessly funny that it makes you wonder why every show just doesn't throw their characters into their own show. Except No other series could pull it off this well. It's forever quotable, endlessly rewatchable, and hands down one of Supernatural's boldest swings. Home run.
Okay, hon. We're just gonna get this makeup off your face.
Well, I'm not wearing any Oh, crap. I'm a painted whore.
We're getting close to the end now, folks, so sorry if this just turns into me listing all the things I love about these episodes, but at number 2, we have Dark Side of the Moon, where Sam and Dean get pretty brutally gunned down in the cold open. Yeah, the episode just starts like that. No build up, no wasted time, it's brutal, efficient, and sets the tone immediately. Like Dean says, let's get this show on the road. And then, Knockin' on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan kicks in. One of my all-time favorite songs, and its use here is absolutely gorgeous. Right away, you know this isn't gonna be a Monster of the Week type deal. This is one of those episodes. The premise is beautiful in its simplicity. The boys are dead, but instead of the pearly gates and harps, heaven is just reliving your greatest hits, your best memories and moments, stitched together into a dreamlike road trip. It's abstract enough to feel big and thematic, but concrete enough to give us an actual episode to watch. And I love that the road motif is more than just driving baby from location to location. Sometimes it's a road, sometimes it's just a childhood toy or a memento from a past vacation. It's creative and it ties into the show's DNA, and it feels way more meaningful than later depictions of heaven that we get. And listen, I haven't really talked about it yet, but this show is so Midwest coded. As a Midwestern boy myself, watching Dean shoot off 4th of July fireworks in some field listening to Bob Dylan hits me like a truck with this weird, warm nostalgia that has stayed with me for years. Sam and Dean's memories here are such a great example of show don't tell. Instead of another monologue about their childhood trauma, we actually see the moments that shaped them. And as we barrel towards the season and pseudo-series finale, this episode feels like the final pit stop where all the character pieces click into place. Not just for us, but for Sam and Dean too. Maybe it's just my personal headcanon, but I think this is where Sam subconsciously decides to sacrifice himself later on. Watching Dean with their mom, realizing how much was stolen from him, and seeing firsthand how long Dean's been, quote, cleaning up Dad's messes, it all adds up. He decides here that that's how he'll earn his redemption, save everyone from going through what he has, and allow his brother and protector some semblance of peace. Jared wears that weight throughout the scene, and they both absolutely crush it here. Some of their best subtle emotional acting of the whole run. The only real stumble is Sam's Stanford memory, which is literally just them standing in the middle of some random street. Not exactly a cinematic choice, but still the confrontation it sparks is sharp and says a lot about the boys' differences, so I guess I'm giving it a pass. The episode isn't without some weird detours. Ash in a luchador mask really isn't my favorite thing on rewatch 20, and Pamela, I'm sorry, I never brought this up before, but I never really bought her as some lifelong friend to the boys. This really should have been Ellen in the bar scene. And of course, Ash's seriously terrible shotgunning form. Still, these little beats lead to strong character moments and set up for the episodes to come, so I guess I'm forgiving the contrivance here as well. The real weight comes in with Zachariah, played with incredible snark and ego by Kurt Fuller. He's menacing as hell here in what might be his best appearance. And then we get that incredible conversation in the garden with Joshua, where he says in the vaguest way possible, God will not save you. It works perfectly. It keeps the big G-O-D mysterious, prevents him from being a narrative skeleton key, and keeps the story grounded in the boys' choices. Later seasons painfully strip away all of that subtlety, but here it's just chilling and powerful. And I know this episode won't rank this high for most people. I get that. But for me, it's the exact flavor of Supernatural that I love. It's thoughtful, bittersweet, with some of the best visuals, music cues, and dialogue of the entire run. It also ties up important threads before the season's finale arc, and it makes you think about what your highlight tape would be. And still has momentum to bring you back after commercial breaks with cool action moments. It may not be the most game-changing episode of all time, but it's my list, and this one's special to me. Alright, since this video's already long enough, we're just gonna rapid fire the 5 worst Supernatural episodes really fast. And before anyone asks, no, I'm not putting Bugs or Route 666 on here. Yes, they're terrible, but at least they've got that impeccable season 1 horror aesthetic that makes them more rewatchable than what's coming. The episodes on this list, they're not just badly written, they're shot in that sanitized TV-14 style I absolutely hate, which makes them straight up unbearable for me personally. At 5th worst, we have season 7, Time for a Wedding. This is the one where Sam gets roofied, unfortunately, and yeah, it's as gross, unfunny, and mean-spirited as it sounds. It hasn't aged well at all, and the actors clearly know it because nobody's bringing their A game, and honestly, I don't blame them. Now, a goofy detour episode can work. Hell, some of the funniest hours of Supernatural on this list are the weird ones, but this thing is built on an outdated trope and saddled with one of the show's most annoying characters, who the writers seem to hate just as much as we do. It doesn't cross that line, if you know what I mean, because we were all thinking it, but it gets way too close. Bottom line, this episode sucks, feels gross, and is 100% skippable. Let's just all agree to pretend it never happened. Yep, at number 4 we have the real series finale. And before you start angrily typing, I get it. This one had an impossible task of filming during COVID lockdowns, and we're basically watching a neutered version of what was originally planned. But here's the thing, I don't think any version of this finale would have satisfied me, because the show already nailed it with Swan Song. More on that in a second. Any attempt at wrapping this story up in a meaningful way will always be compared to what came before, and let's be real, the show hadn't been firing on all cylinders years before COVID hit anyway. Sure, Jared and Jensen bring their A game here, and yes, it's sweet to see the brothers get a nice ending, but it's too little too late. The entire premise feels like trying to win a race that was finished 10 years ago. At the end of the day, Sam and Dean already got the perfect send-off back in season 5, and nothing here comes close to recapturing that magic. Mannequin 3: The Reckoning is so bland, I honestly don't have much to say. Season 6 was the first one I watched live each week, and after the rush of season 5, I was hyped. And then these episodes hit. I distinctly remember feeling this deep, crushing despair because I was so bored after being so excited, and it has not gotten better with a rewatch. It might not objectively be the worst episode, but man, this one hurt me, and I have never forgotten it. Separating the boys for a whole hour is the worst offender here, really? Dean's off with Ben, and Sam's stuck with mannequins that look really dumb. Nothing clicks, nothing entertains, nothing scares. It's just painfully, painfully dull. If you showed this to someone who has no idea what the show is, I guarantee you they would just sit on their phones the whole time, and I don't blame them.
Next Tuesday, Spirit possesses a computer. They're online. Killing time.
Think we're dealing with a ghost in the machine?
We'll just kill the internet.
At number 2, we have Halt and Catch Fire, which is what you get when Supernatural tries to shove modern tech into a show that was never built for it. At its core, this series has always been about grassroots Midwestern Americana vibes. 2 guys in an old muscle car rolling into small towns, poking around crime scenes, flashing fake badges, and solving cases that just sit under the radar. That worked beautifully in the early 2000s when cell phones and the internet were just modern enough to be useful, but not so advanced that they broke the illusion. By the 2010s though, that balance starts to completely collapse. This episode is the ultimate reminder that Supernatural just wasn't built for the technological age. A ghost killing people through Wi-Fi isn't scary. It's awkward. The very premise forces 2 ideologies that completely clash: the analog roadside diner vibe of Supernatural and the sleek digital anxieties of the modern world. Instead of a tense monster of the week, you get a preachy PSA about technology written by people who sound 15 years behind the times. It doesn't just fail as a story, it exposes deep cracks in the show's foundation. Oh boy. And at number 1, we've got this absolute piece of shit, Let the Good Times Roll. You know the one, where the big season finale showdown boils down to that horrendous piece of shit wire stunt between Jensen Ackles as Michael and Mark Pellegrino as Lucifer. It just looks so fucking cheap it's insulting. But honestly, the real crime here is the story. This is the showdown, the apocalyptic death match that the show spent years building towards, the one we barely avoided back in season 5, and it looked like this? Could you imagine if this exact scene had played out at Stull Cemetery? The thought just makes me sick. I remembered it being bad, but rewatching it now, it's somehow even worse. And it's not just the wires, it's the camera work, the lighting, the editing. Fuck whoever directed this. Everything about it screams amateur hour. Like, what even is this? What is this? It feels like a total betrayal of everything the show was once capable of. It was so insulting that I actually quit the show after watching this one live. Didn't come back until the series finale. It was my personal Negan moment, except imagine that scene in The Walking Dead was also shot like a student film out of nowhere. For me, this is rock bottom. After years of decline, this was the breaking point. Honestly, the show should have never even lasted long enough to try and attempt this scene. And look, Supernatural's got some pretty dumb stuff, but this was the moment where I said, nope, I'm out.
I love you, but you are not serious people.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
Fuck this episode. Fuck this show for making me watch it. I refuse to acknowledge its existence. In my head, Supernatural is just this perfect little 5-season show I can revisit whenever I'm feeling down, and Swan Song is the finale. Oh, and speaking of Swan Song, and at number 1, like anyone didn't see this coming, it's the motherfucking Swan Song, baby. The crown jewel, the big finale of Kripke's 5-season plan, and let's be honest, the real ending of the show. We open with Chuck narrating the history of the Impala, and immediately you know this isn't just another episode. The narration is sweet, nostalgic, and a little saccharine, but it works. It elevates everything. It makes the whole thing feel like a movie. Jay Greska's Americana again is layered in here, and you immediately know you're in for something special. And this episode doesn't waste time. It dives headfirst into darkness. Sam prepping for his Lucifer showdown by drinking demon blood again, which is still insane when you think about it. Like, sure, they're demons, but those bodies are real people. The show just kind of shrugs that off. It's brutal and twisted, and it's kind of weird that it never gets addressed, but I guess we've got bigger things to do, and we've only got 43 minutes to do them, so we gotta move on. One last final shout out to Mark Pellegrino's performance as Lucifer, because in my mind, after Sam says yes, we never see him again. He's just gone, he never comes back, there's no more show, and he is outstanding here. In a very small amount of time, he dials it way down compared to his earlier appearances. No smug theatrics, no flashy menace. He's calm, confident, and almost bored. And that's somehow scarier. It's the energy of someone who knows they've already won, and Pellegrino plays it with this razor-sharp subtlety that makes the whole scene much heavier. Then comes the climax at Stull Cemetery, with Dean showing up bumping Rock of Ages, ready to get pummeled if it means not abandoning his brother. It's so fucking good and genuinely inspiring if you're a melodramatic douchebag like myself. And after literal years of build-up, we get the final confrontation, and this is where the filmmaking really shines. Lucifer just beats the absolute dog shit out of Dean, and the way it's all put together is incredible. The editing is sharp and deliberate, letting you feel every punch without ever cutting too fast. The sound design is genius. You don't just hear the fists hitting flesh, you hear this strange, almost musical crack that sells the idea that Dean's world is collapsing with every blow. It's not realism, it's expressionism, showing you what that moment feels like. And then the turn, the Impala, the memories, that montage of their life, the toys, the initials, all the little things that make life worth it. It's so simple but so effective. The editing rhythm shifts, the sound drops into this surreal hum, and suddenly you're inside Sam's head as a flood of love and memory breaks through Lucifer's grip. This is peak storytelling through filmmaking, using image and sound to convey emotion in a way words never could. Sam's sacrifice is devastating. Yes, Adam's actor kind of whiffs the delivery at the end there, but the power of the moment holds strong. Sam spent the entire season being told he's a twisted mirror image of Satan, but it's ironic that he sacrifices himself to save the entire world, which seems a bit more like the actions of a different guy, if you know what I mean. And once it's all over and settled, Chuck closes us out, narrating with that solemn, understated tone before quietly vanishing. Oh yeah, surprise, he's God. Perfect little cherry on top. Do I hate that the show undercuts its earned resolution seconds later with Sam lurking outside Dean's window? Yes, absolutely. But honestly, nothing can take away from the fact that Swan Song is the best episode Supernatural ever pulled off. It's my favorite episode of the series, it's incredibly moving, and it's the definitive finale. It's emotional, it's mythic, it's beautifully made. Everything after this, don't even bother. And those are my picks for the 10 best and 5 worst episodes of Supernatural. But obviously the show has a shit ton of incredible episodes that couldn't make the top 10, so on screen here are just some of my favorites. But please leave a comment down below if you agree or disagree, and also leave a like on the video if you enjoy what I do here. It really helps let YouTube know it needs to show my videos to more wonderful people like you. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to Nostalgia Mode for more entertainment related videos. Until next time, bye.